Welcome to Danja Digital. I am Dana, the chief storyteller here at Danja Tales, and this week in our digital newsletter, I am going to be telling you all about an amazing it's like a planathon, where you'll be preparing for your 2021 goals. I'm going to be participating in that this coming up week, and so I want to tell you all about that. I'm also going to tackle one of your questions. The question that I'm going to tackle today was submitted by one of you, and I'm going to read the question. It says, what preparation do you do before you start writing to get the scene into your head deeply enough that you can write from a deep place, your heart, and discover new layers? So I'm going to break that question down as well as answer that question inside of this newsletter. So if you are going to stick around, I will see you after the introduction. If not, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and to hit the little bell so that you get notifications. But also, could you please head over to danjatales.com where you can subscribe to my newsletter. I'm going to have some stuff that will start coming soon. That's exclusive for newsletter subscribers. So I would love to have you there. And the final thing is, if you have a question, look in the description box. There is a link so that you can submit questions, and that will keep this party going. So for everyone that's hanging out with me, I will see you after the introduction. So yeah, I'll see you on the inside. See you in a bit.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome again to Danja Digital. I am Dana Pittman. I am a USA Today best-selling author. I am a developmental editor. I'm a story nerd. I am a plotting nerd, and I honestly love all things story. And so this question for this week is an amazing question to tackle. I hope that I do it justice, and y'all know I don't. I know. One day I might get to script in my but I love to be able to have these conversations and for you to feel like you're here. So the first thing that I want to get to is the announcement. We're coming up to the end of the year, and this is the time of the year that I always plan for the following year. So I am, just like many of you, planning my 2021 releases and my writing schedule and my marketing plans and who I'm going to align myself with as far as resources, and putting myself on the calendar for my editor and my proofreader, and purchasing images for book covers and all of these things, as well as working with clients and reading plots. And all of those things mean that a plan is necessary. A plan is necessary if you want to be successful. And granted, you can be successful without a plan. However, I do think that when you don't have at least an outline or a general idea of where you're going, it makes the journey a little bit more hectic or chaotic for me. So with that said, coming up, there is a plan-a-thon that I'm participating in with a brand and a company that I've worked with before, and one of my romance newsletter sites is affiliated with, which is Love Kiss. So they're going to be covering writing and planning and marketing and publishing, all around the thought of planning your 2021. And the great thing about this is that you can participate in all of this. There's no charge for it, and you can do as much or as little as you like. And I will be talking about writing and planning your writing. So I will put all of the information in the show notes on my site at Danja Tales. There will be a link, as well as I'll put the direct link in this video so that you can go sign up so that you can participate. At the time of recording this and posting it, it is still free and open. So just do it as soon as possible because I'm not in charge of it. So I don't know when they will close it or all of that. So that is the big announcement. The schedule is still the same. I have not had any, actually there was a new release and I will put that in here somewhere, which is Dark Chapter by Faith Summers. Make sure you grab a copy. That is another Danja Tales author. So please support Faith Summers. She is kicking butt as usual and that's always so exciting to see. And I think that's it. But if you are a Danja Tales client and you have released a book, let us know. We want to encourage you and support you as you move forward in your writing endeavors. With that said, I think we're ready to jump into this week's question. So what preparation do you do before you start writing to get the scene into your head deeply enough that you can write from a deep place, your heart, and discover new layers? This question was actually submitted in several layers, so we're just going to tackle this part because I'm realizing that this is kind of a loaded question. So let me start off with, how do you prepare before you start writing? For me, my preparation starts well before I start writing. Especially the past few months with bringing on more clients, I have learned more and more how my preparation is key to my success in the day-to-day writing of my books. When my preparation is not there, but I will get the work done, but it's a lot more difficult. So part of that preparation is if you look back at the video where I covered preparing for NaNoWriMo and preparing to write, I covered some of those things as far as having my story spine, having my chapters plotted, having at least a few chapters around where I'm writing prepared. So what does that prepared mean for me? That preparation means I will sit down and let's say I'm looking at this chapter and I ask myself a few questions and I answer those few questions. Some of those questions I have a list. And over time you'll create your own list, but some of the things that I have are, what is the point? Who is the point of view character for this current chapter? I also will add the plot point for that chapter. And for me, the plot point could be, some people call it a plot point. Sometimes it's called the story event if you're looking at Story Grid. But I want to know what the plot point is for that chapter. And what that means for me is, if you look at your story from a high angle, why is this chapter in this book? I need to know that. And sometimes that evolves, but it helps. Another thing that I like to know is, if it is a romance, what does this chapter serve, or how does this chapter serve the romance? So I like to have that. Some other questions that I think about are, what is the point of view character's motivation? What is the main conflict that's happening in this chapter? What are some emotions that are being explored? And these things are, I'm just telling you real quick because I have a whole list that I go through, but these are just some things that I like to have in mind and think about before I actually start writing. And of course, if I know them, I like to cover the 5 C's of any scene, which is your inciting incident, any complications. If I do know the turning point complication, I will also list that, the crisis, the climax, as well as the resolution. With that said, sometimes those things are harder to come by, and if they are, I distilled it down to 3 elements, which I found so helpful which is, what is the conflict here? What is the issue going on? And knowing what that is, and what type of dilemma does that conflict present in this chapter? And finally, what's the fallout? Like, what's going to happen? How does it cause that issue to spill over to the future chapters? And a lot of times for me, it's easy to do these things because I plotted my entire novel. And it doesn't mean that I've done all of this, and I'm doing this because the questions are beside me, for the whole book. But I am doing it for this chapter, so it's easy for me to see. Now, one of the things that I do make sure that I pay attention to is if I'm doing those things in the moment, which is going to come to the next part of this question, that I do have a notes section that I have on my document where I put notes that kind of come up to me that I need to keep in mind, whether just for this chapter or that I need to add to future chapters or that I need to use to revise earlier chapters, because that is the part where it's going to go into this next segment of being in the moment. How do you align your heart? How do you align being able to discover and all of that from a deep place? So let's go to that portion of the question. How do you get into a deep place? Especially for me, a lot of my romance at this time is in first person, but how do I get into that deep place to write this chapter? After I have the things that I'm talking about, just knowing what the conflict or dilemma is, what is what is going to be the crisis question of this chapter for this character? How is this going to evolve and fall out into the rest of the book? And the way that I get deeply seated in that is then to go back to my character development. Listen, a lot of people don't spend enough time, in my opinion, talking about character development. If you develop your characters right, pause. I know that's subjective, but whatever it means for you to get this part of your writing done, then that's what you need to do for you. So getting your character development right so that you can sit in that character's skin, that you can sit into that character's life, and that you can see from the character's viewpoint and their perspective. And part of that perspective is that you are creating, when you do your character development, a filter. That they're all of their life in all of these situations and all of these scenarios are being filtered through how do they feel? What is the lie that they're telling themselves? What is the thing that they're going to learn through this story? What is the thing that the other characters will teach them? How will they evolve? And all of those things are kind of a filter for every single scene. And when you know that, it will help you to sit in that character's skin, right? And so that is how I get deep enough to write that scene so that my eyes are their eyes. And it's not Dana, but it is this character right now in this scenario. So how do I get to a deep place from your heart and discover new layers? Part of the deep place is knowing that character and knowing how this conflict is going to wreck their world. We want to wreck their worlds. We want them to be, I give, wave the white flag, I'm done, right? Because that's how you get to the deep place, and that's how they get evolution, and that's how they evolve, right? How do you then also come from your heart and discover new layers? This is how. Because you don't want to plot so heavily that discovery is left out. And so I never want that for you. But for me to get to your heart and to get to those new levels is that I leave it loose enough so that the characters can tell me what's going on. I don't know everything. And that's another reason why I have the notes section, because usually when I sit there and those characters start having dialogue or something is thrown, as Sean Cohen likes to say, like a monkey, like a fear gorilla is thrown at my character, I'm also discovering with her or him how their light is changed by this uprising, this unexpected event. And these unexpected events are what help you make the story better. And it helps you as the writer remain engaged, having fun, exploring all of those good things right along with your characters. And that's why I say plotting doesn't kick that out, right? It doesn't take that away. And that's the fun part of all of this. The last part is, how do you discover new layers? I just told you. If you allow yourself to have those things so you know in your mind that your scene works. As long as you hit those points, your scene works. Everything in between, it's fun. Giggles and grins. It may be some things that you have to clean up later, but that's how you get into the discovery mode, because you just know that you're about to throw something at your character and you're about to watch her or him sweat their way through making it work, finding a solution, and dealing with the love interest, the antagonist, the story goals, the conflict to get to their desired in place. So, y'all, this was a heavy one, and I feel like it's one that I'll need to explore again deeper. Do you have more questions about this? About how do you get into this deep place of writing? How do you set up your scene? What are some of the questions that you ask yourself before, as you prepare the individual scene for your writing session? Please let me know in the comments. Let me know over on my blog. I'd love to hear, and I'd love to explore this topic further. For now, I will see you all hopefully soon. We have more questions to tackle. I will, in the next edition, tackle the next part of this question, which is, how do you keep your scene in your brain all day? Oh my gosh. This is what we're going to talk about next week in the digital newsletter. And let me tell you something. This idea of keeping the scene in your brain between writing sessions, for me, is a game changer. Game changer. And I will tell you why next week. Thank you for joining me for this edition of Danja Digital. If you have not done so already, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Submit your questions in, there's a link in, I'm doing this as if you can see, the link in the description box, and I will see you sooner than later. Take care and goodbye.
I've been down so in love like